finishing off a 2.5 mile run or so. Easy, moderate. Haven't been running too much. Got to get back into it. The Houston, Texas summer was brutal. Better weather now. Out doing a usual barefoot trail run. Just the day in the life. Most of the stuff I did was flat. But at the end here, got these nice rolling trails. And now some strength training. From my outdoor gym to my truck, walking back, sweet domestic cat track, white-tailed deer, lots of white-tailed deer, blue jay flying by, and canine, maybe coyote, maybe domestic dog, I'm not quite sure, but sweet stuff. All right, now off we go. Got to teach some classes, got some calculus today, got to do some private tutoring, do some online, some in person, but calculus will be an opportunity, awesome opportunity to really teach good thinking skills. We're doing related rates today. Instead of merely doing stuff in a book in a classroom and doing the math, which is low quality education, I'm going to work on helping these people with better thinking skills. Too often with problems, people do one word problem, blah, blah, go on, another, blah, go on. Everything's in isolation. That's bad training. We should not be spending years, a decade or more, making that a habit in people's thinking, letting them think that reasoning and math and science don't really have much to do with the world. We should dig in deeply as much as possible. We should have, after all this time on Earth, we should have a system that really helps people develop logic and thinking skills step by step, slowly through the years. There should be a known progression of how they learn more and more about how we form a concept, or how we generalize, how we develop theories and connect knowledge into a big picture and work on wisdom. So we're going to do some of that. In related rates, it's a great opportunity to let them learn to focus on the real world to do a problem. I've been doing that with some stuff we've been doing in related rates. It's so awesome. Some stuff they have trouble doing, and then I just remind them, okay, think about what this is in the real world. Imagine it. Play it as a movie. Think about your experiences. Like in one problem, there's someone making a pretzel with some dough. And some people can't think about that. They're trying to do just the word problem with formulas. Fail. We need to be real. Like Madame Curie, Richard Feynman, Galileo, Kepler, Darwin, Aristotle, and others. Think about having some dough, or people know you can get some pizza go. You know, a lot of people, most everyone's seen the pizza dough being twirled out, gets thinner and all that. People can imagine maybe when they're younger, Play-Doh, mud or something, you roll it out. The mass is the same, the volume. Total volume is the same, it's just in a different form. Same volume, same mass, same weight. It just changes from maybe something spherical to something, and then the problem, you know, they're talking about a cylinder. So it kind of becomes cylindrical before you roll it up, make a pretzel, but you roll it out. and they can imagine and think about what's going on. So then they're being real, then concepts are applied to the situation. Then we measure certain aspects of the situation, which is where math comes in. Reality comes first, not math. We have to have reality, we conceptualize it, then we can measure certain attributes. Measurement comes after we have concept formation, because we got to have an attribute that we have a unit of that we can measure and have relationships with, and so on. Look at the history of physics. If it was taught better, taught right, people would see that. How do we figure out about electricity? What do we need to do? What's a one of electricity or electric current or magnetism or whatever? Where does it even come from? How do we figure things out like that? Then we can measure it. So we do that with the dough. Roll it out. Then they can imagine how it's getting longer and thinner and the volume stays the same. And bam, light bulb, they get the problem. Things like that. It's awesome. That's what we should be doing. In every problem, using it to teach bigger picture thinking skills. Connect to other things. Don't do it in isolation. Year after year after year, think about, students should be trained to think, what does this mean in the real world? And to look at a situation and focus on a certain part of it. All the stuff's going on. What's the same and constant? What's different? Where does the calculus come into play? What's going on in the situation? And then we draw a diagram, work it out. So I've been doing some of that with them, teaching them about thinking skills, how pointing out that, okay, you can't do this problem, but we've done it a few times. Instead of like some people, oh, that means you're stupid. You're like not smart. That's like totally failing to see what human thought and learning is about. It is essential to point out that they do the same thing as we do and we all do. No one is different than this. We all have to repeat something a certain number of times to let it sink in. Repeat it over a certain period of time. Same thing like in fitness. For skills, some things, like look at what Coach Sumner does, a gymnastics coach who's taught trained Olympic athletes, SOMNER. He's on podcasts, you can look it up. I'll try to put a link in the description field. But he knows you got to repeat things from his experience teaching, talking to other people, looking at traditions, talking to people who've taught gymnastics a long time, who've talked to others. There's this big context of wisdom and experience that's informing what he's doing. He knows he's got to go in 3-month intervals, and people have to be bored with what they're doing, because that's when it starts to get sunk in and become part of you. You need to eat, sleep, so it becomes materially part of you, and then you're ready to move on. So he says sometimes the students are begging to move on, but he knows from the wisdom of centuries what good programming is. Same thing kind of here. We need to repeat things over and over again over a period of time. Drill, 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 drill to let it repeat in. Let it sink in. Not repeat in. Repetition helps sink in. And then it's good to do repetition a bunch of times over a few weeks, and then start mixing it up. Instead of just doing related rates, do a derivative, a limit, maybe some pre-cal thing, a related rate problem, something else. That way we got to process more, and that helps us retain it as well. It's very important for learning. But we're doing that. Great stuff. And I'll see you about private tutoring today. Doing some geometry, some chemistry. I'm not sure what'll come up there. But this student, we get to work on good note-taking and how that's important. People don't learn enough when they're younger about writing down essential things and using space. Working on essentials. Because heck, there's like, people become leaders of corporations and all this stuff and still don't know how to do that. That's why some people have to come in and teach them. How to take notes, organize your time, for example, like GTD, getting things done. Forgot the author of that. Going in and helping major big-time corporate executives and companies use time better, write things down, things like that. But that's stuff we should be doing. That's stuff I like to do in teaching to help them think, because we can't do calculus or geometry in and of itself. An underlying skill is how well we think. So, it might come as a surprise to some. Some get it, but it's like a surprise to some. Truly, sadly. But that's the thing I like to work on. Thinking skills in calculus, in geometry, in chemistry. What underlies it? How do we learn? And I've gone over that with a few students recently too. About look at their grades, and I point out how they know the material, it just hadn't sunk in because they need to repeat it again and again over a period of a few weeks, and then start mixing it up. So that's what I'll be doing today. A day in the life of a teacher. Peace.